Good morning, Intenders.
Good morning.
And actually, it's Friday. Let me say that one more time. Good morning, Reflectors.
There we go.
Because it is Reflection Friday. It's Friday, March 6th. Thank you for joining us for this week and for this month. Annette, thank you for joining me on this journey of codependency. I've learned a lot already, and I'm excited to learn some more. I did have a few thoughts about our last few days as we were reflecting, and I decided to go back to the basics, back to the book that started it all, Codependent No More, because I wanted to see the difference, because you opened my eyes. When we're introducing a topic or we're talking about something like codependency, our word choice does matter. Because if we're saying, are you seeing yourself as so highly capable? And it's really not about even your opinion of yourself. It's about the compulsion to dive right in, maybe without even thinking. That's what compulsive behavior is. You do it without thinking.
You're driving your neighbor to the store and you
Before
don't
you
even know
had
how,
time to check your calendar.
and you don't even know how she got in your car. All of a sudden, you're just like, oh, okay. That's the compulsive nature.
Yeah, and we have to get back to and really know when we're talking about codependency, we're talking about compulsive behavior. Now, people out there, you might hear compulsive and think that means I'm bad. No, that does not mean you're bad if you have some compulsive behavior. We all do. This is why Annette and I teach that when we feel a reaction coming up inside, we all have reactions in our emotions. That's when we take a pause as long as we need until we can respond with intention. It's learning to check in and recognize our compulsive behaviors, because you know me, you know me by now. What am I going to say? I'm going to say, I can get compulsively angry about stuff before I have time to check in.
Having a compulsive reaction simply means that you find yourself in the behavior without thinking it through first.
Exactly. It's not like you're a bad person.
Or that
you've done anything
you
bad.
can't change.
Right.
You can change. Once we go through this book and after however long you and I are going to talk about this, I think we'll all have some tools in our toolbox so that we don't have to do things the old way.
And that's the goal of personal development work. Is recognizing
exactly.
where we're at right now, being honest and authentic about that, gaining new insights, learning new knowledge, learning new tools, putting those tools into action, and then putting them into action so much they become the new normal, the new part of us, integrated. And maybe that's actually the fourth level of growth. We have our 3, insight, action, and integration. Maybe we need to add awareness at the beginning. I know some people here, when they hear me say, there's another step, Ada. I like steps. I like rules. So maybe I won't add that one officially, but it's great to keep in mind that this all starts with awareness and honesty. And if we recognize, man, I just do these things and I don't even think about it. It just pops out of my mouth. I say the thing. I say yes before I even have time to think about, is that something I really want? I do believe we all have parts of us in different situations where we do have a compulsive reaction to the situation without thinking. And through personal development, we're learning to take them from that compulsive state to where we're actually thinking through our words and our actions and our choices. Get that to the level of response.
Without judgment.
Of course, without judgment. That doesn't even need to be said, but I'm always glad you say that because it's a great reminder. That's our attitude. We're not judging ourselves here any more than it is to build the awareness of, here's what's going on in my life. Here's how I show up. There might be some tears with that, and don't judge those either.
I just want to give a quick example of how easy this can be. So the other day, Don said he needed to get his glasses repaired. Don has all the time in the world to go get his glasses repaired. But then I heard the words come out of my mouth, oh, I'll drop those off for you. And I didn't have time. I looked at my schedule and I thought, why did I say that? I don't even have time. And what I did then, instead of beating myself up about, okay, here you go, you wanted to be helpful, but then you bit off more than you could chew, I went back to Dawn and said, on second thought, I actually don't have time to do that. I would love to do it, but I don't have time. And once again, Dawn says, okay, I'll do that. So when we find ourselves saying and wanting to help, there is no judgment. And that's really important. We can go back and say, don't have time.
Yep. We can always choose again. It's
Always.
like your shopping cart on Amazon. Until you click buy, you can take it out of the cart. Until the day of the get-together, until the very second you're supposed to show up somewhere or do something for someone, you get to change your mind. You don't have to go through with something just because you compulsively agreed to. You can always say, you know what, I thought about it, and take Annette as our model here. I don't have time. It's okay to do that. Now, Melody Beattie, here's her definition of codependency. And she does say in her book, Codependent No More, that codependency does show up in a lot of different ways and different forms. The definition can be a little gray and fuzzy, but here's the words that she put to it. And tell me what you think, Annette. I think there's a word or two words that maybe you'll take issue with, and we'll see how this stacks up to what we learn with Terry Cole. A codependent person is one who has let another person's behavior affect him or her and who is obsessed with controlling that person's behavior. That's it. That's the whole definition. Yep.
Well, thank God for Terry Cole, because we need some differentiation there. And that's why I'm glad that we understand now what underfunctioning codependency is and what high functioning codependency is. I think what Melody Beattie was talking about is more high functioning codependency. Would you please read that again? Because I want to make sure I understand.
Absolutely. A codependent person is one who has let another person's behavior affect him or her, and who is obsessed with controlling that person's behavior.
Well, I'm going to say it. That's why we need Terry Cole, because that is extremely insufficient.
I would say, and I also have an issue. These are the two words I thought you'd have an issue. Obsessed and controlling.
Yeah, obsessed and control, because it's not that.
Well, she also gives some characteristics, and the reason I'm bringing this up, again, I said she cornered the market. I said that earlier on, of codependency.
Well, she is the one who brought this to all of our attention. So I don't want to be critical of her work, but
absolutely not.
It needs to be expanded. And I think that's why there's a place for Terry Cole in this, because Terry Cole's work expands it enough so that we can differentiate between the two different types of codependency. And also, hopefully, through our work together and understanding high functioning codependency, you and I will probably throw in a little bit about the underfunctioning occasionally. But I do think once we see what this looks like, if this really is getting in the way of our aligning with self, we'll have some tools in our toolbox.
That's right. And I also wanted to bring this up because we want to give a full picture of codependency, and different words hit different people differently. And we may bring something up, or I may bring something up because I've been looking at this book that hits home maybe a little bit more than Terry Cole.
I would appreciate you bringing up what you're seeing in Melody Beattie's work, because these do go together. I want to get us on focus for the weekend before we run out of time.
Okay.
If that's okay. So now, if you have the book, and you don't have to have the book, but if you do have the book, at the very end of chapter 1, there is a section called overfunctioning. And I wanted to bring clarity into the high functioning codependent. What does overfunctioning mean, according to Terry Cole? What she shares is extremely helpful. And if you're deep into high functioning codependency, This is where you might be able to get some clarity about how you're showing up. You may be able to see, oh gosh, maybe I am doing some of this stuff. She talks about resentment and people pleasing. And then this is what I want our focus to be for the weekend: tolerating too much. Now, this is what Terry Cole says about tolerating too much. As high-functioning codependents, we are accustomed to a constant outflow of energy, picking up the slack, scanning situations and people to make sure that everything and everyone is okay, handling whatever needs to be handled. In that process, we don't even realize what we might be tolerating. Then she has a list on the next page. It's page 31, if you're following along. And she says, the following are big and small real-life examples from my community, her community, of what people tolerate. I wanted us to bring awareness over the weekend and just maybe watch ourselves tolerate some of these things. Non-stop complaints from immediate family, fake friends, and chronic interrupters. Always being the one to travel to see family. Poor treatment, the silent treatment, gaslighting, and other abusive behavior. Okay, so I'm going to put a neon light on what I just read. Gaslighting and other abusive behavior. So if someone is gaslighting you, that is abusive behavior. Please understand that, because we can give it a pass. Oh, that's just the way they are. Oh, they didn't mean it. Gaslighting is abusive behavior. Disrespect from kids or stepkids. Bearing the brunt of hostility under the guise of a joke. That's why Ada and I don't tolerate teasing, because teasing gets out of hand so easily, and it actually is a veiled way to mistreat someone.
I've never seen a tease that isn't this bullet point. They always have this little bit of truth in every tease. Oh, it's just a joke. Oh, why can't you take a joke? No, it was meant as an insult, and you laughed at the end. That's not a joke.
Double standards in relationships. For example, the friend who takes her sweet time in replying, if at all, but expects an instant response when she's the one reaching out. Doing more than your share of the housework. Self-sabotage and self-medicating with alcohol. Comments about weight and appearance. Regularly being on the receiving end of other people's drama and stress. So please think about ways, and maybe your ways can be added to this list. This isn't an all-inclusive list. But think about what you're tolerating from today until we come back together again on Monday. Because one of the markers of a high-functioning codependent is that we tolerate too much.
And that'll be our reflection question for today and for the weekend. What am I tolerating too much? What am I tolerating too much? And if you need to go back and listen to Annette's list that she read from the book, please do. Thank you so much for joining us today. Our day is better because you are part of our day. See you Monday.
See you then.
I'm wanting something more.